Welcome back to another episode of the Tempo Podcast. Now, this episode, you might have guessed by the title, something has happened, and we're going to discuss it. What has happened? I'll get my guests on stage first, and then I'll let them explain to you, and we can kind of go from there, see what has happened, what do we need to do, what do we need to know. Now, first of all, on many of my productions, we've had my good friend, Mr. David Krieger, come along. David, how you doing?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Briefly, who are you? What do you do? And why are you here today?
So I am president of Sales Roads. We are a sales outsourcing company focused on B2B appointment setting, lead generation, SDR outsourcing. And so the reason I'm here today is we do a lot of work with cold calling, cold prospecting over the phone, but we try to supplement and help our reps book more high quality appointments through email. And so it's something that we're focused on doing well. And with the recent changes to Google, Yahoo, as well as, it's just an ever-changing landscape. We've actually started working with Taylor to help us make sure that we've got the right email infrastructure so that when our SDRs are sending out emails, are doing the type of prospecting and cadences we want them to do, that the prospects actually receive the emails that they're sending. And so he is an expert in this area. And we've been working really hard on making sure that we really have this buttoned up for our clients, for our team, and would love to talk to you about it today.
Which leads me perfectly to Taylor. Welcome to the podcast. David kind of gave us a snippet, but you guys are working together. What's going on? Bring me the news. What's the latest? David hinted at it. There's email change that's going on. It's live. What's happened?
Yeah. So the quick version is that we thought the world was ending 3 months ago, and we thought Google was going to make this huge policy implementation that would just completely change up cold email, right? We had some backup plans, but they were going to change the game completely. A lot of people were going to go out of business, all that kind of stuff. And then a month and a half ago, something happened with their confidence or something like that. And they backtracked it, and they were just like, oh, it just applies to personal emails, right? And so now you have a situation where everybody was like, okay, cool. Now we literally don't have to do anything, which that isn't necessarily the case either, right? And so we can hop into what exactly people need to be doing or what they need to be thinking of because the policy goes into effect on February 1st. And so if you're in the future, it's already active right now. And it's something that you really need to be thinking about, So do you want me to hop kind of more in depth on all the different topics there? Or do we want to branch in some other spots first?
I think let's start with that. Let's divulge what exactly has happened. What does it mean? What do you need to do if you do need to change anything or, do anything differently at all? What specifically is the best that we know right now?
Yeah. So basically, I kind of divide it up into 4 buckets, right? So I work with B2B companies every single day, typically SaaS companies as well. So I'll work with some agencies and lead generation companies and things like that, like with David. And I do some lead generation services myself. But like my main business is consulting B2B SaaS sales teams on how to like implement cold email infrastructure at scale for their sales teams. Right. And so what I'm telling them right now is there's really only like 4 things that they really need to be thinking about. Right. One is that every single company needs to have their DNS records put into place. And most companies have no idea how to do it. I have a list of like almost 30,000 SaaS companies, and I've ran an audit on all of them, and 63% of them have these settings wrong. Right. And so it's something where they have it wrong. I'll email them and go, hey, you got it wrong. And they'll be like, F off. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever, And it just kind of, so a lot of these companies don't care about it, but as soon as February rolls around, they'll have to care about it. And so if they don't have their SPF, their DKIM, and their DMARC all in place, then Google's just automatically going to be blocking them and putting them, or not completely blocking, but shuffling them directly into a spam folder, right? And it's pretty simple, right? An SPF is basically you telling the world where your emails come from. So usually they contain Google or Outlook or something like that. A DKIM record is something where it's Google or Outlook, whoever your vendor is, they are confirming your SPF record and like agreeing with it, right? And then a DMARC record basically sets a policy in place to where if your SPF and your DKIM aren't aligned, then it can either fail and be completely quarantined, it can be rejected, or we just decide to do nothing with it in general, right? So that's kind of the first thing, is that no matter who you are, if you're emailing to personal emails or not, you need to have those three settings pretty much just perfectly set up, which most companies do not have set up, right? And so it's a simple thing, and it's a super simple thing to fix, right? You could Google it really fast and have it fixed for your whole company, unless you have like a complicated setup with a bunch of CRM tools and different senders for your whole company. Then it gets kind of complicated, right? But that's kind of the first bucket. So the second bucket, right, is that if your company sends more than 5,000 emails a day, then Google's going to label you as a bulk sender. And there's a couple things that come into play with that. And there's really only two things that I think you have to worry about there. Is that one, they're going to force you to put an unsubscribe header inside of your emails, which basically allows it to, there'll be a banner on all your recipients' emails. It'll be an unsubscribe thing at the top, and they can click one button and they're immediately unsubscribed from everything that you're doing, right? The second thing that happens is that if at any point in time when you're emailing personal accounts, so at gmail.com or at yahoo.com, then they are, if on any given day you are more than 4 out of every 1,000 emails that go out, if 4 of those emails are marked as spam, then your entire Google Workspace panel is at risk of being suspended. So that's your CEO, your AP, your every single person in your entire company. All of a sudden, their email just stops working because Google doesn't like that your spam rate got too high, which 4 out of 1,000 is a really, really low number to hit, right? So a lot of companies are worried. They don't want that to happen to them. And then if you aren't on Google, right, I see some people, they're like, well, I'm not on Google, so who cares? It's like, no, if they're going to track from your organization ID what you're doing. And if you go above that threshold, then they just block you from emailing anybody at all that's on Google. And most people have an @gmail.com personal email. So imagine if tomorrow, all of a sudden, you can't email any personal email account, especially if you're a SaaS company or you work with any type of consumer networks or anything like that, right? And so it's something where a lot of companies, they're just making sure to be on top of it. And you have to start going through all of these hoops to fix it, right? Or to prevent it. And you start having to do all that stuff. And you have to be really cognizant, because here's the risk, right? Is that you could be a larger company and one of your marketing people, your marketing intern, forgets to put an unsubscribe link on the email. And so everybody goes, oh, there's not an unsubscribe. It's much easier to just click the spam button. And 4 people out of 1,000 do that. And then boom, now you're in Google jail for however long it takes to get that fixed, right? And so my opinion is just why even put your company in that risk. And that's where kind of bucket 3 and bucket 4 come in, right? Bucket 3 to me is, if your company is doing marketing, why would you ever send your marketing emails that are at risk of being flagged for spam? Why would you ever send them on your primary domain? I think every company that is doing any sort of marketing should get, if your company is Apollo, you should have marketing at apollo.com. And that should be all of your marketing is done on there. So your operations personnel are separate. So a lot of my clients, I'm coaching them to set up just a single secondary domain, sometimes a second or a third domain, just a backup in case this one suddenly falls. They can still get their stuff out tomorrow, right? But most of the time, it's just like, hey, let's just have a secondary domain where we can have everything properly connected, right? The fourth bucket is, if you have a sales team, in my opinion, you need to have and of course I'm biased on this because this is my bread and butter in regards to teaching companies how to do this stuff, but you need to have a multi-domain cold email infrastructure in place where you're using sometimes 50 or 100 different domains in combination with your sales team in order to get a high output of outbound with your cold emailing teams and things like that, which, once again, I'm biased. So of course I'm going to tell people to do that, but I also like to believe in what I sell, So yeah, so that's kind of the big picture of it. But the main things to take away, right, is that you need to have your settings set up properly. And then if you send more than 5,000 emails a day, you really need to be considering some of the solutions that I outlined here.
Okay, cool. Now, small disclaimer for everybody. Obviously, this is live to view at any point. So we're talking in a moment in time. Please do not come to me or to Taylor or to David and say that this is outdated because we're talking about today. So obviously the timeliness is a thing. This has already changed 2, if not 3 times since the announcement, which was maybe 4 months ago from today when we're talking about it. So this is a moving puzzle. And of course, that means we're not liable if you decide to do something said here and it's now incorrect. So that's your own disclaimer, and seek each of our advice individually before you do any of that if you'd like to. So let's go back for a moment to the first announcement. Do you remember when that was, David? I remember reading it, and with a lot of these things, I think the reaction is often blown way out of proportion on an extreme scale. I remember seeing the email that everybody posted on LinkedIn, the first recollection of it, and I was thinking at the time, okay, looks like if you do things wrong, they'll tell you that that's a bad thing. That's not particularly a scary statement to me at this point. Then since, to me, I wasn't that surprised they changed it. Oftentimes, and we've seen this a lot with SMS rules that have happened, that they're chaotic to say the least. These things get set up once, there's response, there's change, there's so on and so forth, and a long lead up until when it's now live, which it now is. I was then really surprised how steeply, to say the word backtracked maybe is not right, but now to say it's purely about personal emails has surprised me quite a bit how far different that was. At the very first reading, and I had to read it a few times, it's a very complicated issue, but I thought that it meant if you send more than 5,000 emails a day as a person at company, for example, that's wrong. And I thought, well, if you work in an enterprise company and you announce a job posting, 5,000, done. That can't be right. So I had to recheck. But what was your initial take on this, David? Do you remember? And how far different do you feel now about it than you did first reading?
So I think that the solution is still the same. But let me walk you through the steps. So when we did see the announcement, like Taylor and you have alluded, it seemed pretty extreme. It was going to be, every email that was, a Google hosted email, people were talking about getting completely shut down. And so at that point, it was kind of like, wow, they really are serious about this. And then they've backtracked a bit, but I think that the moral of the story is still the same. One, Google is serious about this, right? And they maybe are taking some smaller steps now, and they're trying to figure out the right balance and whatnot, because they want to create a good experience for their users. So at the end of the day, that's what they are trying to balance, while also understanding that there is some nuance here, and there are a lot of good players in this industry that use email channel in the right way, and they don't want to penalize them. And it's not easy to find that happy medium. But at the end of the day, I think all of us in sales who leverage email as a channel and do it responsibly, right? There's a lot of bad actors in this, just like with cold call, the robo dials, and there's bad actors. And as long as you're not in that camp, I think that the way forward is pretty clear. One, make sure that you understand what Google's intent is and what are the things they are asking you to do. And some of those are pretty, as Taylor said, easy to do as long as you know what to do or have somebody to help you do them, and do them right, because it will create a better experience for the people that you're emailing. I personally think if somebody really doesn't want an email from myself or my clients, they should be easily able to unsubscribe from that, right? That's if we've mistargeted, we've, whatnot. So I think we're in the same camp as Google, and just make sure you get those things right. And then, secondly is just be, on top of this as far as what are the things that are changing moving forward. Make sure that you are committed to understanding what Google's looking for. And then thirdly, at the end of the day, and this is where everything started, if you're using email, make sure you do things well. target well, target people who actually need your product or service. Those are much less likely to put you into spam. And they're going to welcome the email that you're having. Make sure that you work on the messaging that you have that is relevant and interesting to that person. And I think that if you do the technical things well, the targeting well, and the messaging well, at the end of the day, these changes will not affect you. If anything, they will help you because they will cut out those people who aren't doing those things well. And that will help both you and the prospects that you're emailing.
Yeah, as I think about it, the first thing that comes to mind, which I may see less of, is you guys probably get quite a bit of this, particularly you, David, because of the line of work you're in. Like all the time, probably 6 or 7 a day, it's MSP, channel service provider, contact data from Salesforce customers. It's all like spammy, not legitimate stuff that is nefarious in most ways without even looking at it twice. And I just click like delete spam. And a lot of them do come from, xr392j@gmail.com. And you think, I don't know them. So that's probably not quite right. I imagine I'll see a bit less of that. I hope I do, because that's quite often. So that might be a good thing. So I want to come back to you, Taylor. There was something that you said which really made my ears prick up. You said, I think I got the number right, 63% of companies that you audited do not have their record set up straight. So remind me, is that correct? And then basically give me the baby steps. Let's say I'm part of that unfortunate 63%, which sounds astronomically higher than I thought you were going to say. That's worrying. Yeah. What do I do? I mean, I know this is your business, but in a simple way, how the hell do I fix that? Because that's not good.
Yeah, for sure. Well, luckily, this is something where if I'm talking to a buddy and it's an issue, I just help him out because it's so simple. So most of the time, right, like your SPF record, typically when you create your account or you first created Google Workspace or Office 365 for your company or whatever, typically they would have automatically installed your SPF record for you, right? Which totally makes sense. And so it's very rare that I see a company that has a messed up SPF record. Typically when I do though, it's because it's a larger company, and technically speaking, an SPF record only allows for 10 different sources for emails, right? And so oftentimes I see companies where they have MailChimp, and then they also have Mailgun, and then they also have Outreach, and then they also, and so on, right? And so they have more than 10. And so it's overloaded, so it doesn't work anymore, right? And so for that, you need to get a special service called SPF flattening, or you hit me up and I know how to do it. But it basically makes it so that we can fit all of that stuff inside of an SPF record, or it just has like a typo or something like that in it, right? So usually what I do actually is that, like, if you're a company that like you're worried about this kind of stuff, is you can go to mxtoolbox.com. And I think just right there at the top of the page, there's a little search bar for like an MX. Yeah, I think it's just called an MX lookup. You type your domain in there, and then it should tell you immediately if your SPF, your DKIM, and your DMARC are good or not, right? And so that's like the easiest way to check, to double check those, right? And so SPF is usually pretty easy, usually pretty straightforward. And your SPF record itself, it depends on what vendors you're using, right? So Google has one. If you do a quick Google search for Google SPF record, it'll just pop up. It's very obvious, right? The second one, DKIM, is a little less obvious, right? And Google does not automatically set this up for you when you create your account, right? It's literally hidden in a menu somewhere. And if you don't have a guy that knows that a button needs to be clicked, then it doesn't work, right? And so there's a lot of different pathways. Depending on how specific you want me to get, I can kind of go down exactly where on the menu you probably need to click or whatever it may be, right? But for the most part, right, it's as simple as going into your workspace panel, like on Google, for example. You just go to, like, I think it's like account, and then email settings, and then there's a section that says DKIM. And then what happens in there is you need to generate a DKIM record. Then you need to put the record into your DNS settings, if it's on Cloudflare or GoDaddy or whatever. And then after it's in there, you then need to authenticate it and click the start button, for example, right? And then Microsoft has a very similar process as well. You have to go to like a DKIM.com, blah, 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 and then take the record, put it into a thing, and then click a button in order to activate it and stuff like that, right? So that one's pretty straight, or it's fairly simple, but like you have no idea where to like look, and Google doesn't tell you for some reason that you need to do that. And DKIM's the most important one as well. Like if you don't have a DKIM record, you basically look like you're somebody who's spoofing and sending out emails saying that you're sending emails from Google servers, but Google's saying, no, they aren't, or no, they don't have approval because you don't have a DKIM, right? And so it is the one that I see the most errors with. And then the final one, a DMARC record, right, has two parts in it. The first part is a policy. And so you'll see there's three different policies, right? There's none, there is quarantine, and then there's reject, right? And basically all that's saying is that if you get an email, or if we get an email and SPF and DKIM are not aligned, then we are going to do nothing with it. We're going to quarantine it, or we are going to reject it, right? So the issue with a DMARC record, though, is that if I get an email from you and you do not have a DMARC record, the primary purpose of a DMARC record is to prevent phishing and spoofing, which spoofing is sending an email looking like somebody else. So if Apple didn't have a DMARC record, then a good hacker could send timcook@apple.com and use that email all day to do some major damage, right? And so anyway, so the DMARC record prevents that. So if I get an email from you and you do not even have a DMARC record, then that means you have no security to prevent spoofing, which means you are a risk to my company, right? Because it could be phishing, it could be spoofing, right? And so most of the time they just bounce and automatically get rejected because people don't have that set up. And so that's kind of the first part of the record. Typically you want to start at none. And then once you're above 99% authentication, then you go to quarantine. And then when you're above 99.5%, then you go to reject, right? But you might be going, how the heck do I know what percentage I'm at? And that's where the monitoring part comes in. You can do stuff through MX Toolbox, Glock apps, Easy DMARC, Power DMARC. There's a million of them. They will typically cost your company anywhere between typically $200 to $400 a month to have them on properly. I do a service for some of my clients that's just pretty straightforward. I just add them onto my DMARC monitor and then alert them if any issues are going on. And I just charge them like $99 a month. And then usually that takes care of it for them, but basically that monitoring, it gives you a bunch of data on how many of your company's emails are authenticating or not. Right. And so, it gives you, so now when Google's really enforcing this stuff, I think it makes sense for a company to be tracking that kind of stuff in case one day Joe, who is in your DNS settings, accidentally deletes one little character on your DKIM record, and then now the whole thing stops working. I would want to know that happened right away, right? Or as soon as possible, I should say. One thing about the DMARC monitors is they're typically a couple weeks delayed because they're waiting on people to give you the reports, right? But still, right? It's like, I would want to know that. And so DMARC monitoring just allows you to get real-time or near real-time data on like your authentication levels and if you're over or underperforming and so on, right? Does that all make sense?
I'm with you. Yeah, I got you.
Cool.
Okay, I got one.
So the main thing I'll say, right, is from that is like an action item is just go to MX Toolbox, run the check. If you have issues, hit me up and I'm happy to help.
Okay, I got a cutting question for you. This might be difficult. I appreciate this. May be a let's come back to this answer. Okay.
Okay.
Taylor, is it DMARC or DMARC? Is it DKIM or DKIM? It's like one of those things I've just always thought. I don't know if I'm saying this right.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's we call them DMARC, DMARC, DKIM, DKIM. All caps.
So pretend you're saying somebody's name. Okay, I'll bear that with
kind
me.
of. Exactly.
Trivia knowledge then. Do you know what they stand for? Or is that way out left field?
No
problem
idea.
if not.
I just fixed them. I have no idea what they stand for.
Even better answer. Very good.
Actually, I got one. SPF, I think, is Sender Policy Framework. Probably.
Good knowledge. Good knowledge. For everyone listening, go look that up and see if you can beat us to a comment. Tell us what it is.
And if I'm wrong, just roast me, okay?
I like it. I like it. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, David, are you ready for a pretty awkward question as well?
Always, Ollie.
Okay. Honestly, when you guys looked into your setup, where were you on the oh my god, cataclysmic disaster coming, or we're really good, just small change or nothing needed?
So for these technical changes, we were actually in pretty good shape. So we had set these things up right, and we have somebody internal who does help with some of these things, as far as just making sure that the records are set up right and that we're compliant with that basic technical side of things. What we wanted to do is make sure that we had a really good infrastructure to be able to monitor it, be able to understand the changes moving forward. Also, make sure that we did a full audit to make sure, double check everything that we are doing, and then just make sure that we've got the right platforms to be able to stay up to date and compliant. And Taylor has been amazing with that and making sure that we have the infrastructure at scale to make sure that we are handling these things for our clients in the right way. Because as Taylor said, it is really important. And most of the clients were not emailing Gmail addresses and things like that. There are a handful where we are, but still, like what I said before, we want to make sure we are set up in the right way for our clients, because even if they don't specifically impact some of our clients or even us, we are understanding the signal from Google that this is the right way to do things, and things can change at any moment. We wanted to make sure we really set up for success.
I'm not surprised by that, and fair play. Okay, gentlemen, last question for you each, same one, and then we'll go to our last thing before I let you get out of here. Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to go.
All right, Taylor put his hand up first. He's in. Okay. A minute, 30 seconds or so. What's your closing statement? What do you think of this? How do you feel? What's the state of play?
I think most companies aren't treating it with enough severity, because it went from like a super severe thing to like a kind of severe thing. And the more companies I talk to, the more their records are messed up and they seem to not care. And I think after February 1st and some issues start happening, they're probably going to be hitting me back up or something like that, So I do think it's something where like people need to be doing the checks. And if they have errors, they need to be doing the due diligence to fix it. But Google will let you know if you're doing good or bad anyway. So you'll figure it out eventually.
Fair enough. David, you got benefit of going second. Are you going to repeat the statement or are you going to do your own?
Well, I'm going to sort of combine it all. And I think here's the other thing I want to mention. Another thing that as we've thought about it, as we've talked to Taylor and thought through this, even if you are a B2B company, and you aren't emailing Gmail addresses and things like that, again, not only is this a signal from Google that this is the right way to do things, and maybe you won't end up in quote unquote Google jail where they're going to do the extreme things people are worried about, where you can't email Gmail addresses, or, maybe eventually expand it to Google Workspace, whatever they might do. You still could end up, they're telling you what they want and what they don't want, and you don't want to end up in spam. So this is a gray, It's not like black or white. It's not like you get shut down or not. But if you aren't doing things in the right way, I am sure Google is telling you these are the things that are going to either land you in spam or maybe not primary inbox. And so if you want to end up in primary inbox, they have at least given you more clearly a roadmap to how they are prioritizing your emails. And so I think that this is a great sort of warning to everybody, a wake-up call to say, okay, I need to understand what Google is wanting. They are looking at what their customers want, and let's just get in line and do things in the right way. And I think everybody, with the exception of some of the mass spammers, and maybe they'll figure out workarounds, I don't know, will be better for this, and just think about what Google is looking for, what your clients are looking for, and set it up accordingly, and you'll be better for it.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I feel like I sit in the middle of the group of people who feel there was a huge overreaction and then now maybe not giving it quite the attention it deserves. I think that's probably because a lot of the advice given, a lot of the wording mentioned, like the records that we've been talking about, you've got to go and check them and maybe update them. it seems so foundational that once you've done it, it's probably done forever. And that's not my job. It's okay, cool. With someone way before my tenure here dealt with that. So that's the thing that I think it's kind of like, so if your parents are telling you got to brush your teeth, maybe you need to be told, but sometimes, it's never a bad thing to check your foundations, the obvious things, and just look at it, because if it takes you 3 seconds and you're fine, good. If you really did need telling for a good reason, then you have a problem in front of you. So there's that. Okay, gentlemen, we're on to our last thing. Oh, sorry.
Can I add one thing on there that I thought of as David was talking, is that another thing that kind of comes into play with this stuff, or that companies should be thinking about, is that, like David's saying, Google's kind of telling you how they're thinking about this stuff. And there's going to be more stuff that comes down the pipeline that further reinforces this stuff. So they, at first, were like, we're going to do this to everybody. Then they got a lot of very expensive clients saying, hey, like outreach, for example, saying, hey, you're about to destroy our entire company. Can we like go a little slower for a minute, right? And then they backtracked. And so Google's telling you that they want to go in that direction anyways. And that's where I think services like David's are super important, is that you can either take the risk on your primary domain at your company by doing your own outbound and risk the reputation of your domain and risk the sending capability of your CEO and all of that kind of stuff. Or you can work with a vendor like David, who knows his stuff, keeps up on it, is connected with me, who can DM him on a weird thing that he also needs to think about. So like David's super up to date on absolutely everything going on right now, but Google's also going to change the game in 1 month, and Microsoft is going to change the game in 2 months, and so on. And so having a partner like David that can just do all that stuff for you and stay on top of it and just handle all the outbound for you is like a really big deal. And it's a really good insurance for a company to be able to have, in my opinion. Right. And so that's another huge part of it that I've seen a lot of clients thinking on, is that they're not really doing this stuff internally anymore, because it's just like, why bother with the risk when you can have it just done right with somebody like David? So
great point. All right, guys, I got the final thing for you as I look to my screen over here, which is why I'm now really bright in the face, because I've got a white Google document open. Some quick fire questions. I'll start with Taylor because I've written his first. Out of 100, 100 being you're the best in the world, rate me your sales technical skills. Let's say RevOps skills, that type of thing. Rate me your skills out of 100.
Probably 95 percentile.
95. Okay, what about your sales tools knowledge out of 100?
95.
95. Cold calling skill?
70.
70. Cold emailing skill?
96.
96 specific. I like it. Not 95, 96. Bit different. What time do you wake up in the morning?
I successfully wake up at 5 a.m., but I'm trying to get as close to 4 a.m. as I can, but I keep failing.
You keep failing. 5 a.m. is still a success if you ask me. Fair enough.
It's nice because I wake up and there's no DMs yet because everyone's still asleep, so I can actually get some work done.
Not a bad idea. I like it.
Yeah.
What did you want to be as what was your dream job when you were a kid? What did you want to be?
I think I wanted to be like an engineer. My uncle was an engineer, and I always looked up to him, and he had a good family. So eventually settled on chemical engineering, and then I started up an e-commerce business and dropped out of college and went a completely different path.
Cool. I like it. And no pressure if you can't think of someone now, but who should we have on the podcast after you that you could introduce us to? Tim Cook? Someone like that?
I mean, yeah, if you can get him, do it. Yeah, for sure. But no, valuable people. If you give me a couple minutes, I can actually think of some good names.
Have a think. I'll DM you.
Yeah.
We can sort it out. But I've got to put you under pressure and see what you come up with. So there we go. All right, David, your turn. So what is the highest number of cold calls you've ever made in one day?
The highest number was probably about a full day with about 150.
150. All right. That's pretty good. That's pretty high. Probably difficult to answer, but across your career, or we could do at SalesWords if you prefer, what would be an average of the deal sizes you've worked on?
So our average client is about 120,000 ARR.
120,000 ARR. I'll write that down. Okay. What about your cold email skills out of 100? Are you going to say you're better than Taylor, the same, not quite as good?
So I'm working on them, but that isn't my strong suit right now. I'd say that I'm about 70 or so.
Pretty strong. All right. And I'm going to assume cold calling, you're up there.
Yeah, with Taylor's guidance, I've been getting better.
Yeah, well,
So.
and some of the stuff that he's been doing with like AI personalization at scale, like he's taught me some stuff. So I'd rate him a little higher than that, but he's also rapidly increasing that for sure. So
thank you.
I'll just put 75. Let's bear that in mind. All right. Cold calling out of 100.
Yeah, so I mean that's my strong suit. So I'd say about 90, 95.
All right, let's say 96 because Taylor had a 96. Rate your management skills out of 100.
Yeah, so that I'm proud of as well. So I'd say about 95.
95. All right, you got to pick from one of the following two. Send a video or use social media. You're going to reach out to a prospect. Which one would you use?
Can I send a video through social media?
That's probably what you would do, yeah, but I'm going to say it's a video because that's the medium.
Okay.
Cool. What time do you get up in the morning?
So I get up at 7, so I'm a slacker compared to Taylor, and he's up before me, and he is on Mountain Time.
You don't want to know when I get up then if that's slacking. All right, cool. What did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream job?
Dermatologist.
Dermatologist. All right. And the same last question that I have for Taylor. Who can you bring on that you think should come on the show if anyone comes to mind?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that some old school, or not old school, but people who've been around for a while and getting their perspectives on the current environment is super interesting. So I've actually been talking a lot with Mark Hunter, who's been around in this industry for a long time. And I think he's a really smart guy. And I think sometimes we get perspective. There's so many things that are changing. Obviously, as Taylor mentioned, we're working on AI to like help augment our processes and things like that. Working with Taylor to help, upgrade our infrastructure from an emailing perspective. And that's super important. And I think really important for all companies. But I think sometimes companies get caught up in all the new things and they don't think about the fundamentals. And I think talking to people who've been in this industry for 30 years or so and talking to them about, at least as long as they're innovating, I think Mark Hunter is a really smart guy, talking to them about how things still stay the same. What are the fundamentals? What are the things that are new that you should be focused on? I think those voices are really important to talk to get perspective on our industry.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you. That is the end of the show. Let's get you both out of here. Before you jump, in order of left to right on my screen. So, David, where can people find and follow you?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. So, please, if we're not connected, reach out, connect, ask me any questions you have. Happy to comment on some of the email things. I might be DMing Taylor in the background. So if you do have cold infrastructure, email infrastructure question, he is just a wizard with this stuff. And so I would say reach out to both of us. I would love to be connected, but he is really a go-to on this particular topic with those types of questions and can really help answer things. But also, if you guys want to have an expert managing your back end, he is the right person to know.
Excellent. And you, Taylor, where can people find you?
You can find me at LinkedIn, .com/Taylor Heron or whatever the /in is in between there. Also, you can see my portfolio at taylorheron.me. You can see my company at salesautomation.systems. And then I'm also revamping and relaunching a new product called coldemailinfrastructure.com. And so new updated website will be out shortly, but the main goal is to make it pretty just simple and not complicated for a company if they want to do cold email infrastructure at scale for their sales teams. It's just pretty straightforward and tells them what they should be thinking about, and it's easy to set up, right? But yeah, those are the main spots to find me right now.
All right, cool. Everyone go connect with my guys. And of course, a final disclaimer, we're not on the hook for your decisions here. We're giving you the advice based on the current best practices that we have seen and that we know. This is our reaction, and of course, things will change. So thank you for listening. If you made it this far, congratulations, and we will see you on the next one. See you in a bit, guys.